Welcome. I am Serena, and in this video, I'm looking at the coverage from Channel 4, and it is again going to be looked at from the lens of media literacy. So let's start. Let's watch this. I'll play it now.
Almost 33,000 people have been killed in Gaza during this war. That number and the circumstances around some of those deaths is disputed by the Israelis. What's different about what happened yesterday? There is no dispute, there is no confusion. 7 aid workers with the charity World Central Kitchen were killed. The group included 3 British people, a Pole, an Australian, a Palestinian, and a dual US-Canadian citizen. They were in Gaza feeding the hungry. They were killed by an Israeli airstrike.
Hey, this is Zomi and Chef Olivier. We're at the Jirabala kitchen.
People like Zomi Frankham from Melbourne, Australia, although you wouldn't know it from the smile, spent the last 5 years on the front lines of the world's wars and disasters. Here she is with her extended family. They said in a statement that her legacy would be one of compassion, bravery and love for all those in her orbit.
Hello everyone, Damien checking from Cairo.
Damien Sobul was from Poland, close to the border with Ukraine. Joined World Central Kitchen when Russia invaded there. A childhood friend spoke to us about him today.
I think he was one of a kind. Extremely funny, positive, optimistic person. He died doing something that he really, really loved.
This is Damien with Saif Abu Taha, also killed in yesterday's strike. He was from Rafah in southern Gaza, and his funeral took place today. These are the vehicles they were in when they were killed. The World Central Kitchen logo clearly visible on the roof of this car. The group were traveling in 3 separate vehicles. So what happened and why did they die? They all worked with the US charity World Central Kitchen, one of the Israeli government's favoured NGOs. WCK were one of the first on the ground after the October the 7th attacks. As well as food distribution, they'd been bringing aid into Gaza by sea via a jetty that they'd constructed, but are pausing their operation after the strike. World Central Kitchen says its workers had finished unloading tons of food at a warehouse in Deir al-Balah before leaving there in 3 vehicles along a route and at a time which had been agreed with the IDF. These are the positions along the Al-Rashid coastal road in central Gaza where the strikes happened. The burnt-out vehicles are spread out across a distance of about 1.5 miles. 2 of the vehicles are on the road itself. The remains of the 3rd vehicle is here on a patch of open ground around 100 metres off the road. According to reporting by the Haaretz newspaper in Israel, survivors from the strike on the 1st vehicle tried to take cover in the 2nd one, which was hit next. Then the wounded from there tried to get to the 3rd car. The vehicles were targeted 3 times in succession, in other words, until everyone was killed. The Israeli military said an independent investigation would be launched into what happened. Benjamin Netanyahu said the strike was a mistake.
Unfortunately, within the last day, there was a tragic case of our forces unintentionally hitting innocent people in the Gaza Strip. This happens in wartime. We're thoroughly looking into it, we're in contact with their governments, and we'll do everything to ensure it doesn't happen again.
This incident heaps more international pressure on Israel. The political significance of killing the citizens of your allies is lost on no one. And neither is the personal trauma experienced when people with the best of intentions die in the worst sort of way.
Following today's fatal attack, World Central Kitchen is sending its aid ship back to Cyprus, and another aid agency has also suspended operations over fears for the safety of their workers. But it's not the first time that humanitarians have come under fire in a conflict that has already cost the lives of at least 196 aid workers. In November, this convoy of vehicles belonging to Médecins Sans Frontières was attacked by a tank during an attempt to evacuate south from Gaza City. The charity says not only were they travelling in clearly marked vehicles and had notified the IDF, but that they were following a route indicated to them by Israeli forces. 2 people died. MSF concluded it was a deliberate attack by the IDF and asked for a formal investigation. None came. On January 18th, the accommodation and offices used by the British charity Medical Aid for Palestinians was hit by an airstrike in the supposedly safe zone of Al-Mawasi. They had sent their coordinates to the IDF, who at first denied responsibility, then said the strike was a mistake. On January 29th, in the neighbourhood of Tel Al-Hawa in Gaza City, the Palestinian Red Crescent Society sent an ambulance to rescue 6-year-old Hind Rajab, who was trapped in a car with her family after they were killed by Israeli forces. The ambulance crew radioed to say they were being targeted by IDF lasers. There was a loud explosion and the connection was lost. 10 days later, after the charred vehicles were discovered, the IDF said they were looking into it. On the 5th of February, a UN food truck travelling as part of a convoy along the supposedly safe route on Al-Rashid Street was hit.
I'm going to interrupt very quickly. So far, the coverage that I've been seeing when journalists are speaking to any government official who is partnered with Israel, they tend to say, we have asked them to investigate, or we are waiting for an investigation. I don't think that's the same kind of allowance given to everyone when something of this nature occurs. I think look at other examples, other sort of sensible equivalent examples where something like this has taken place and the response has been, we're urging them to investigate rather than we're going to make them stop or we're going to ask them to stop. It's quite revealing, quite interesting, but may not be a surprise.
By naval fire. It was carrying food and flour, which was destroyed, and afterwards the UN stopped sending food trucks into the north. And on the 20th of February, this accommodation building used by MSF was hit by what weapons experts say was a tank shell. 2 people were killed and 7 injured. MSF say they had given the building's coordinates to the IDF, who have previously said they were examining the incident. One of many in which nearly 200 aid workers, mostly Palestinians, have been killed. Well, the IDF didn't respond to our request for comment on those specific incidents, but joining me now from Tel Aviv is Israeli government spokesperson David Mensa. First of all, is the Israeli government apologising to the families of the aid workers killed, including the 3 families in Britain?
A direct question. He's asking the most direct question, and that's how he wants to start this interview. Let's go.
Well, firstly, thank you, Kirshnan, for having me on. From the Prime Minister to the Defence Minister to the spokesman for the Israel Defence Forces, all of us have expressed grief about this occurrence.
Yes, but are you apologising?
To be frank, if you let me answer, Kirshnan, there's no point attacking me already. I've just arrived, for heaven's sake.
I'm not attacking you. I'm just asking you a simple question. I want an answer time.
Where was the attack? Okay, so rewinding.
Spokesperson.
Okay.
200 aid
Rewinding.
workers, mostly Palestinians,
was there an attack?
Have been killed.
Okay.
Well, the IDF didn't respond to our request for comment on those specific incidents, but joining me now from Tel Aviv is Israeli government spokesperson David Mensa. First of all, is the Israeli government apologising to the families of the aid workers killed, including the 3 families in Britain?
Well, firstly, thank you, Kirshnan, for having me on. From the Prime Minister to the Defence Minister to the spokesman for the Israel Defence Forces, all of us have expressed grief about this occurrence.
Yes, but are you apologising?
To be frank.
Yes, but are you apologising? Is that an attack?
To be frank, if you let me answer, Kirshnan, there's no point attacking me already. I've just arrived, for heaven's sake.
I'm not attacking you. I'm just asking you a simple question. I want an answer to it.
No, you are.
Are you apologising?
And allow me to answer. We have expressed grief about this operation, but we need to find out exactly what has happened.
Can you imagine when something like this occurs, to think, or clearly they don't think that the expectation is, gosh, get them to express grief. That's the first thing that we all want in such a situation when someone has done something violently just I don't even know which words to describe it. Our expectation is please express grief immediately.
Minister, as he came out of hospital today, the Defence Minister and Minister Gallant have all expressed grief. Indeed, there is a sense of grief across the whole country.
Expressing grief. There's a sense of grief across the whole country.
Because WKD are one of the good guys.
But you said this was unintentional. So this was a mistake, wasn't it? So you can apologise already. You don't need to know the precise details to issue an apology. There are grieving families tonight.
There are grieving families, and we grieve with them because clearly something catastrophic has happened. Clearly something catastrophic has happened. It's not something that we wanted, and we're going to get to the bottom of this and find out exactly what happened, because the role of bringing aid to innocent Gazans, to ordinary Gazans, not to Hamas, to the genocidal terror organization Hamas, that role is sacrosanct to us. We've got no beef with the people of Gaza, ordinary people, which
we got no beef. Beef. Someone briefed this man. Beef?
Bringing aid to innocent Gazans, to ordinary Gazans, not to Hamas, to the genocidal terror organization Hamas, that role is sacrosanct to us. We've got no beef with the people of Gaza, ordinary people. We're trying to get as much aid as we possibly can.
I mean, it's not sacrosanct.
The dilemma,
saying things like you're trying to get as much aid as possible is just not true, because only a few days ago, the UN's highest court, the ICJ, ordered Israel to, without delay, facilitate humanitarian aid. And tonight, a ship laden with tons of aid is sailing away, and humanitarian organizations are saying it is simply too dangerous for them to carry on supplying aid because you kill their aid workers. So it is just not true to say it's sacrosanct.
And it's not true to say you got no beef.
It absolutely is sacrosanct, because before this war, which we didn't want or didn't ask for, there were about 70 aid trucks of food alone going into Gaza. Just today, there were 243 on an
those
average.
Numbers are disputed.
No, they're not disputed. They're facts, Kirshnan. And we can.
No, they're not, because the UN said that before the war there were 500
facts.
trucks going into Gaza and around 150.
So, Kirshnan, I'm talking about food now. We're not sending in. We're not sending in cement anymore.
Anyway, I don't want to argue about the numbers of trucks. I'm not asking you about trucks. I'm talking about the fact
to build a terror network. Concrete has been used to build.
We're not talking about that either right now. We're talking about
Wow, what a deflection! What a deflection! Now, here's when he accuses Kirshnan of disputing everything.
You talked, Kirshnan, about the aid trucks. We're saying that we're talking about food. There were 70 before the war. Today, there were 240.
Well, again, I must say, the 70 before the war is a disputed number.
Those are the facts, Kirshnan.
Well, it's not a fact, it's a disputed, it's a claim, and it's disputed. And there are contradictory numbers.
I say is disputed.
Let's move on to the facts.
We are a democratic country.
Here it comes. Okay, so you can't dispute anything, because then the I just can't be polite in these situations, and I'm really trying hard to work on being more polite and agreeable. Next, we have a bit of I would say, flurry of what Kirshnan calls propaganda, because it really is. It's just it's just strings of sentences to plant seeds and frame things in a way. It's also deflection. It's also distraction. It's also like saying, okay, let's just say you and I have a dispute, right? I broke your fence. I'm your neighbor and I've broken your fence. Now, what I'm going to do is talk to you instead of dealing with the situation because I've broken your fence. I'm now going to talk about all the times I've put my bin out on time for the trash collection, bin collection, how I vote, how I am a community an active member of the community, how I'm a school governor. It's like, what has this got to do with the incident? And again, all of those things are self-serving. None of those were for anyone else, but that was my point. And this is what I do in my videos. And again, I'm a new channel, so I'm attracting a lot of numbers because I'm covering topical issues. And I'm attracting some comments, obviously saying, why do you do it? I do it like this because it's me, bruv. So if you don't want it, there's another commentary somewhere else. And also, somebody said, but this is speculation. I'm like, well, of course it is. I don't have the facts. None of us do. That's what we're all doing behind our screens, speculating. Okay. I'm really trying to work on being more polite and agreeable. Let's get back to the video.
With a free press and with
I'm not asking you about trucks. I'm talking
So we're a democracy with a free press. Okay, let's go.
about the fact
to build a terror network. Concrete has been used to build.
We're not talking about that either right now. We're talking about
because you talked, Kirshnan, about the aid trucks. We're saying that we're talking about food. There were 70 before the war. Today there were 240.
Well, again, I must say the 70 before the war is a disputed number.
Those are the facts, Kirshnan.
Well, it's not a fact. It's a disputed. It's a claim, and it's disputed. And there are contradictory. There are contradictory numbers.
I say is disputed.
Let's move on to the facts.
We are a democratic country with a free press and with checks and balances. And at some point, you've got to take our side over a genocidal terrorist organization.
No, we don't take anyone's sides. We're journalists asking questions.
Whoa! We're a democracy with a free press and checks and balances. At some point, you have to take our side, even when we do something wrong. This is wild. I'm sorry. Well, someone's going to say, as someone often says, why do you react so dramatically? And I'm like, because it warrants it. When something is so undeniably silly, stupid, it warrants a reaction. Hence why fourth blah, I am here. I've got to rewind, wheel it up. Not because it's a good tune, but just because it's ridiculous. You're going to listen to it again.
Contradictory. There are contradictory numbers.
I say is disputed.
Let's move on to the facts.
We are a democratic country with a free press and with checks and balances. And at some point, you've got to take our side over a genocidal terrorist organization.
We don't take anyone's sides. We're journalists asking questions. Now.
I'm not here to take a side, bruv. I'm here to ask questions. There's a whole video about impartiality that you can find on my channel. We can always go into being impartial and how it's impossible. But yeah, he's being clear. He's being a journalist and he's asking questions.
The next question
Which is
about
the right thing to do, Kirshnan.
Let me be your friend now. Let's be friends. Sorry, it's his own thing. So he's all heated, the Israeli spokesman. He's all heated, and then he stops. He's like, which is the right thing to do? And then his face just drops. Round one, done. Or is it round two?
That we're talking about food. There were 70 before the war. Today, there were 240.
Well, again, I must say, the 70 before the war is a disputed number.
Those are the facts, Kirshnan.
Well, it's not a fact. It's a disputed. It's a claim, and it's disputed. And there are contradictory. There are contradictory numbers.
I say is disputed.
Let's move on to the facts.
We are a democratic country with a free press and with checks and balances. And at some point, you've got to take our side over a genocidal terrorist organization.
We don't take anyone's sides. We're journalists asking questions. Now, the next question
which is
about
the right thing to do, Kirshnan.
The next thing I wanted to ask you about is the 196 other aid workers who have been killed in Israeli strikes. Are you also going to investigate them in the same way?
Look, every civilian death is a catastrophe, but the point of this whole operation is to focus on Hamas and to get our hostages out. Any aid worker, genuine aid worker, of which WCK are one of the good guys in this war, because the dilemma that we face is that aid workers themselves actually participated.
Do you accept that they are aid workers?
Aid workers themselves from UNRWA, for example.
No, we're not talking about UNRWA. I'm asking you about Médecins Sans Frontières. Are they a recognised aid agency in your mind?
I don't have any information on MSF to share with you, so I can't speak to that point. But I want to share with you the dilemma that we face here in Israel.
No,
We're
no, no. I
trying to
want to keep
conduct this
asking you
war.
about some of
Krishnan's not having it anymore. Krishnan, well done. You're not having it anymore. Yeah, I'm fed up as well. I'm fed up of like the incessant, elongated answers, full of lots of jibber jabber and propaganda and jargon. Of course, it's a reaction. Of course, I'm interrupting. I'll rewind it a little bit. Let's go.
in your mind.
Nice socks, Krishnan. Nice socks.
I don't have any information on MSF to share with you, so I can't speak to that point. But I want to share with you the dilemma that we face here in Israel.
No,
We're
no, no. I
trying to
want to keep
conduct this
asking you
war.
about some of these cases because also
Okay, sure,
in
go ahead.
January there was the British charity Medical Aid for Palestinians that was hit. Is that being investigated?
Again, I don't have any information on that case. I, from my memory banks, will tell you that medical aid for the Palestinians, I think, have been investigated by the Charity Commission in the UK itself for the misuse of funds. So that's probably not the best example, but this expresses the dilemma which we're facing.
Shots fired. And listen, this is reminding me of the US state briefing questions. Whenever they're asked specific questions, the government reps, etc., whenever they're asked questions, the press secretary, whoever, they're like, "What? Don't have the information right now." It's like, what do you know? What's your job? But shots fired. Did you hear that? Rewind a little bit.
By the Charity Commission in the UK itself for the misuse of funds. So that's probably not the best example, but this expresses the dilemma which we're facing here in Israel. We're trying to get aid using genuine partners, which we believe that WCK are a genuine partner, trying to ensure that Hamas does not steal the aid, loot these trucks, and get it to the people that need it. You know, there's one thing you can be sure of that, unfortunately, is that there's no one hungry in Hamas. We're trying to get as much aid as we possibly can because we have no beef with ordinary Palestinians. We're trying to get to Hamas.
Again with the beef, bro. Again with the beef stroganoff, bro. Come on. You're a government spokesperson. You've been briefed. What is it with you constantly talking about beef stroganoff?
Us to finish off this war so that we can return to peace and, most importantly, de-radicalize Gaza.
Yeah,
Gaza has a
okay.
right
Finally,
to be.
just before you go, can I ask you as a matter of fact, did Israel bomb the Iranian consulate in Syria?
So I've got no comment on that, but what I can share
Okay,
with
fine.
you is that Daniel Hagari said quite clearly that it wasn't a civilian embassy, it was a military base for Al-Quds. So while I can't
Okay, but you're not
confirm
going
or
to admit
deny
it.
or no, as I said, that was a military base for the Al-Quds force. Iran, unfortunately, once again, trying to destabilize this region, not for the good of the Palestinian people, not for the good of the.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Who's trying to destabilize the region? Who?
Once again, trying to destabilize this region, not for the good of the Palestinian people, not for the good of the Arab world at large, but just to destabilize this region.
Israelis themselves protesting in Tel Aviv are themselves saying, claiming how. Okay, Serena, carry on.
We're trying to go for peace. We're trying to go for coexistence, but we need to get.
I'm sorry,
rid of
David, I've got to
Hamas,
cut you off there. Because I mean,
Sure.
I'm just trying to get answers to questions, and if you can't answer the question, then
Good
I
to be
can't
with
allow
you.
you to do the propaganda bit afterwards. But
Krishnan! Pew, 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 pew. Pew, 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 sound effects. Krishnan! You absolute G. If you can't answer these questions, I'm not going to allow you to do the propaganda bit at the end. Because you know they always do. Okay. And let's rewind.
We're trying to go for peace. We're trying to go for coexistence, but we need to
I'm
get
sorry,
rid of
David, I've got
Hamas.
to cut you off there. Because I mean,
Sure.
I'm just trying to get answers to questions, and if you can't answer the question, then
Good
I
to be
can't
with
allow
you.
you to do the propaganda bit afterwards. But David Menzer, thank you very much indeed.
You're
for
such a
joining us.
sweetheart. You're such a sweetheart,
Kieran.
Krishnan.
Did you call him a sweetheart? Bruv.
David, I've got to cut you
course.
off there, because I mean, I'm trying to get answers to questions, and if you can't answer the question, then I can't allow you to do the propaganda bit afterwards. But David Mensah, thank you very much indeed.
You're such a sweetheart. You're such a sweetheart, Krishnan.
Just making light of it at the end, because you're here to answer questions because of something like absolutely heinous has taken place. And yet all you could say and offer on behalf of your government is that you are in grief and you're expressing your grief. And then when you're asked questions, you actually want to do your propaganda bit. And then when you're like he said, okay, Krishnan says, if you're not going to answer the questions, then I won't allow you to do the propaganda bit at the end. And that lets you know, it's like, that's actually what's been happening. And it's been like allowed to happen because they get these spokespeople on or Israeli government officials, and they always do their propaganda bit. Let's just see what else is going on in this video. I can't rewind that again. It was too painful, but yeah.
You're just a sweetheart, Krishnan.